Good afternoon, and thank you so much for tuning in to Girl Talk with Kaelin, where we discuss millennial women on the rise. I'm your host, Kaelin Anne, and I'm just so grateful to be here today. Again, a special thanks to Kevin Adele and the Word Network for allowing millennials to have a platform here. So today's topic is mental illness, and we have a special guest here, one of my good friends, Jordyn.
Hi.
Hey, girl.
How are you?
Good. How are you?
I'm good.
I'm so grateful that you've just decided to bless us with your presence. So can you just tell us a little bit about yourself and just your experience and stuff? Go ahead.
Yes, so my name is Jordyn Dunlap. As you said, I'm a television news reporter, and I'm also the founder and CEO of a mental health nonprofit called I Live the Movement. Basically what that serves as is just a platform of support for survivors of any form of mental illness. So whether it's PTSD, if it's trauma, if it's suicide, and kind of just serves as that community for support.
Awesome. And so tell us, your story regarding, how you got into media. You're really young and you've done so much already. So tell us a little bit about that.
So media, I'm actually the daughter of a print reporter. So from a young age, I kind of grew up seeing the impact that the media had on the community.
Yes.
And so I've interned for CNN, the New York Times, ABC World News in Australia. And so for me, I've always felt drawn to kind of go in and kind of break up the monotony of news.
I love that.
It always gets kind of a bad rep.
It does.
So I kind of want to help orchestrate newness in that.
Yeah, I love that. And so just diving into the topic, mental health, how can mental health and mental illness be defined, and are they the same thing? Because I feel like a lot of people aren't. I'm not all that knowledgeable in either or, but just tell us the definitions of them, and then how do they correlate with each other?
So mental health, that aspect of it is more so like our psychological and emotional well-being, while mental illness is like a defined diagnosis. So the mental illness would be depression or anxiety, things like that. And they work kind of together more so with us being able to kind of process the differences. So there's a lot of people who have like symptoms of a mental illness, but they don't work on their mental health. So that emotional and psychological well-being.
Gotcha. And so what are some things that are some signs, some symptoms of mental, that you're not taking care of yourself mentally with your health and illnesses too? Like how can you how can you see that, the symptoms of each of those?
I would say it depends on the person, number one.
Okay.
But two, looking for signs of withdrawal. Typically, a lot of times when we go through things, it's easy to isolate. So we shut down. We get off social media. But it's like ultimately that's what the enemy wants.
Exactly.
And just even different signs of anxiety or fear or just being so consumed in circumstantial things, I think are kind of warning signs to look for.
Gotcha. I love that. And so what is it like being diagnosed with a mental illness while working in ministry and in the media industry?
It's interesting.
A loaded question, I'm sorry.
It's interesting. I would definitely say, as it pertains to in media, it's very challenging because from a young age, even as a preacher's kid, I would say that I struggled very heavily with perfectionism. So anxiety to perform.
We all do. Yes.
Yeah, and anxiety to be perfect.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, it's none of us are perfect.
Of course.
And so being able to rest in that, and I feel like learning true identity is kind of key.
Okay.
But yeah.
I like that. I really do. So tell us a little bit about your own experiences when it comes to mental illness and, your story.
Yes. So, like I said, I am a PK, so I'm a preacher's kid. I'm in media, as you said. And for me, I got into my first relationship when I was 15, so I was a baby.
I could date at 15.
See, I wasn't allowed, so technically it was 17. So from the age of 15 to 21, I was in this very toxic relationship.
Okay.
I knew that the relationship was unpleasing to the Lord, but I was being governed by my flesh and not by the Spirit. And so because I was so young, I don't necessarily feel that I lost myself, but I more so think that I never gave the Lord time to develop me.
I like that.
So I allowed that relationship and social media to kind of dictate who I was and my identity until I got to that suicidal point to where I would have rather died than not been in that relationship.
Really?
So it's through the breaking that the Lord was able to really just birth identity and value and worth aside from me being a reporter or someone's girlfriend, but getting to the core of who Jordyn is as a person. So.
And do you think dating so young kind of allowed you to get off into not being, knowing who you are and knowing your worth? Because you, I guess, when you were in the relationship, you kind of found your identity within that, and once that was gone, then you felt like there was no more. So do you think being younger and dating younger, do you think that was kind of contributed to that?
I think it definitely played like a key role, just because, like you said, it was like, until I know self, I'm not going to be able to know anything else, you know?
Yeah.
So I definitely think it played like a vital role in my breaking, but too, it's like if I wouldn't have went through that, I would have never been delivered. I wouldn't be sitting here.
Yes. Yes.
So yeah.
And what about your parents? Because you're PK, and you have a lot of people looking at you. I know that is like annoying sometimes, like, oh my gosh, so you feel like you have to be perfect. And so were your parents ever, did your mom ever like check in with you, like, Jordyn, what's going on? Are you okay? Like, was there any signs for her that she said anything to you about?
We actually, as a family, talked about it after, because once I began to like really walk with the Lord, I had to see like this didn't just happen to me, but this happened to my family as a whole, and everyone connected to me. So because I was this perfectionist, this television news reporter that my life can be falling apart, but when I get on that camera, I turn it on, turn it off, nobody knew. So the fact that basically what had happened was I wasn't a drinker, but I had like overdosed on prescription pills, over 32 prescription pills and alcohol. So my parents found me like unresponsive in my car. So I was at the time interning at CNN Atlanta, but I was in Columbus. So it was like, my parents were like, number one, why is she in Columbus? She's passed out in her car and we have to rush her to the ER. And no one knows anything. Because I was good at like the mask, turn it on, turn it off.
Did you ever, like, was there anybody in your life at that time who were you able to like be vulnerable with and like talk to regarding this situation and how you felt and not feeling like you were worthy regarding your the guy you were with?
There was one person, so my sister-in-law. She was always the voice of reason. So I would always be conflicted, like, well, if I tell her too much, she's going to tell my brother, and then my brother's going to tell my parents. But, you know, like, when you're not walking with the Lord and we ask for, like, truth, and truth isn't ministered to us, if we're not in a space where we're able to wholeheartedly receive that truth, it's, you're attacking me. You know? So that's how I felt. I would ask her for truth and share my heart, but the moment that truth was administered, I didn't know how to receive it until I got to that suicidal point, and then she's like, this is what's going on. So yeah.
I definitely get that. And how can we maintain our health, our mental health in practical ways? So just your experience, and I'm not sure, when did this happen?
This was December of 2016.
Okay.
So going on 2 years.
2 years.
Yeah.
Okay, well, congratulations.
Thank you.
Yes. And yeah, so what are some practical ways that we can maintain our mental health?
I would say everything goes back to being intentional. So just like everything is a process. I think that a lot of times as millennials, we don't like to commit to the process of anything. So the process of healing, whether it's like education or whatever it may be.
You want it now.
Yeah. Instantaneously. And it doesn't happen like that.
It doesn't. Healing
so I just think that,
does not.
Yeah. Like being intentional with everything is kind of key. And even like practical things like journaling. For me, my gateway has always been prayer, the secret place with the Lord.
Of course.
And so just really developing a prayer life. For me, it's always been journaling as a journalist. And two, just getting in a space with someone that you feel that you can trust to confide in. If it's a professor, if it's your mom, if you have that relationship, just getting those thoughts out somehow, some way. But not doing anything, I feel like is not an option, because isolation will literally kill you. And
that's one thing that the enemy definitely tries to do. Gets us isolated and thinking that this is only happening to us. You know, I definitely struggle with depression. And one thing that helped me was me writing. Like I literally would write out my prayers. Sometimes I couldn't even speak them or talk to God like out loud, because I didn't want to hear. Like you just don't want to be like, oh my gosh, I'm really crazy, I'm acting. So just writing that out and writing out my prayers and just really seeing it on paper, like, oh my gosh, like this is actually helping me. And it's also like my safe space as well. So I think that's a really good one. And so why is mental health, especially in our community, African American community, so important?
I would say just because of like history. Like we come from historically like slavery and brokenness and all these various things. So I think that we grow up in a broken state that we forget that wholeness is still an option. But it's committing to that process of becoming whole.
And how do we do that?
So if I'm honest, the process of like becoming whole is not glamorous, but it is very gruesome. So I think that a lot of times one of the pivotal reasons that young women don't really become whole is because we don't want to go on the process. So it's easy for us to just like, if we're in a relationship, on to the next one. But it's difficult to be like, okay, Lord, like help me to process what it is I'm going through. So like, oh, that rejection, I'm going to deal with that. That fear, I'm going to deal with that. So that is difficult in itself, but it's like, will we commit to the process? Because too, it's like the Lord desires to partner with us. So it's not necessarily like we have to walk through anything alone, but it's like he is walking with us. But again, will we commit to that process of walking with the Lord?
I love that. I love that. And I know I myself has struggled with that process and committing to that, because it's like, no, I don't want to wait for that. Like I want it now. I want to be healed now. I want to be whole now. And just being intentional about truly like, okay, God, this has happened to me, and this has happened to me in different relationships. Why is this happening? And I need you to fix it now. But then sometimes we tend to, okay, I need to work. That's my thing. Let me work. Let me find something to do. Let me plan something, and that's going to distract me from the process. And I know I'm not the only one who struggles with it, but just as a believer, it's hard, really to allow God to just really surrender, to surrender to God and really allow him to do that within you, that healing. And so just imagine people who aren't believers, like what does that look like for them? What do you think?
I would say, to be honest, as somebody who has been walking with the Lord now, and even growing up like in the church, it wasn't like I never knew the Lord, but I intentionally went the other direction.
Gotcha.
But honestly, I feel like, just to be honest, there's no healing found apart from the Lord. So it's like, when we search out like healing, quote unquote, in the world, we begin to like try to utilize different things to fill voids. So whether that's like sex or like social media. I could talk all day about social media and how it dictates our perception of like success and beauty and relationships and marriage. But again, it just goes back to like us being intentional. Like wholeness is an option, but like, are we willing?
Right. And do you think social media, I know earlier you were just like, you can tell when someone's going through something when they like disappear on social media. Do you think that's a bad thing?
I think that there's many pros and cons to social media. However, I think that you should have a healthy relationship with social media. I don't necessarily believe that social media is the platform for you to just spill the beans, but I think that there is freedom in vulnerability. But that's why my social media is very transparent. I don't do that to just spill my guts, but it's like, every time I do that, somebody's freedom is on the other side of my obedience to the Lord. So if the Lord instructs me to like share where you're at right now, and I'm like, on a social media, Lord, I don't think so. Makeup on, my hair not done. Like, but it's like in that stuff is like kind of where peace comes, and even like fear begins to like break off of us because we're walking in obedience to the Lord.
I love that. I really do. So you really didn't answer the question. Do you think it's a bad? You said it just depends on,
I don't think it's necessarily a bad thing. I think it's just dependent upon the person. So like, if you are going through something and you feel like you're going to be able to become healed by being off social media, and then that's fine. That's your preference. But it's just,
if you think about it, there's so many things to compare, so many people to compare yourself with on social media. And I think just seeing all those different people and exposing yourself to those different spirits and those you're just opening yourself up to so many different things. How can you not compare yourself? How can you not, feel some type of, depression when you're looking at someone you're saying, who's similar in your situation or my situation, and like, I should be there, but I'm not. You know what I'm saying?
And that's too why I think that like, I had to go through this process of like, how can I develop, and even the thing that like, this is what we discussed in our century, is having like a positive relationship with social media, but comparison, jealousy, rejection, all those things are very real. And I think that, like I said, if you don't have a healthy relationship with social media, whether you're going through something or not, you don't need to be on social media. Because like you said, it's like, essentially, we see what people want us to see. So it's like, they're kind of like highlight reels. But I don't think that it's necessarily a bad thing, but I think it's your preference.
It's your preference and how your process and however that is, how that looks. And so what should you do if someone close to you seems to be suffering from a mental illness?
I would say one of the biggest things that I wish I would have been able to like play in my story was being present. I think a lot of times that when we see someone going through something and we don't know what to do, it's easy for us to react in a different way or to say the wrong thing. But I think a lot of times just making yourself available for that whether they want to discuss it in the moment or not. But just, giving yourself and listening. A lot of times that's the biggest thing. You don't always have to talk, but like, can you come and just sit and just listen to me? So just being able to be present in the moment with someone. Another thing I would say is think about them more than it is about you. So if you came to me and you're like, I think I'm depressed. I think I'm clinically depressed. I would try to, extend my invitation, extend my listening ear, but if it got to the point to where I'm like, she might be suicidal, I would like get in contact with whoever's close to you and just let them know what's going on. Not because I want to expose necessarily your business, but because I care about your life.
Yeah.
So
I love that. I really do. Can you recover from a mental illness, and if so, how?
Yes. I
By
would
the grace
say,
of God, yes, you can.
yes. I would say I got this. I have a lot of tattoos, but I got this in my colon tattoo like when I was like maybe like 2 months out of the hospital. And I like when people ask about it because it's basically like representation of suicide prevention. I would say one way to overcome a mental illness is by allowing yourself to break. For me, the biggest thing was like, Lord, I'm perfect. I don't break. My social media is this. And the Lord is like, no.
Right.
So being able to be so vulnerable and allowing the Lord to wholeheartedly just break you till you have nothing left.
Yeah.
It's in those moments that he's able to really like develop identity and just cultivate worth and value aside from a relationship or a social media handle or anything that you're involved in. And so I would definitely say allowing the breaking to really build you, because that's what it's made for.
I love that. And so what does the journey of healing or becoming whole look like?
It is gruesome, I will say. It is hard, it is difficult, but it's in those moments of like healing that you're really, like I said, developed. And so for me, I always tell people the exact thing that I try to flee from is what saved my life, which is essentially community. So being forced to be in a community of people who love me and call me forth by the Spirit, not by mistakes of the past, that kind of helped me to grow and heal and kind of cultivate the woman that I'm becoming. Because I feel like we can do nothing alone. I am a product not just of like obviously the grace of God, but like community. You know what I mean? So that was one of the biggest things for me, is community.
And what was that like? How do you reach out to those people, or how do you get connected to those right resources when you aren't as close to certain people, or when you don't have the strongest, family foundation or church home?
I would say even like praying and seeking the Lord, because I don't believe that like everybody's supposed to help everyone get through everything.
Okay.
And so even if it's like a friend or a coworker or someone like that that has like wisdom, you know, I think that intentionally seeking out someone, not necessarily that you aspire to be like, but someone who is whole. So if I have a friend that's broken and she's going through what I'm going through, I'm not going to go to her about advice because she's where I am.
Exactly.
So just even like intentionally seeking out, Lord, like, well, Lord, who do you want, you know what I mean, to disciple me? Who do you want to help me heal?
Right.
It's kind of like the biggest thing, but like we all need someone, even if it's one person that we can trust.
I love that. I really do. Thank you so much for coming on.
Yes, thank you.
Of course. Do you have any last tips or advice that you want to give to those who are suffering with mental illness, or, you know?
I would say commit to the process of becoming whole, knowing that we don't always have to have it all together all the time.
Yeah.
We'll never reach a space where we've arrived, but just commit to the process of allowing the Lord to partner with you and do the work. We're all broken. We're all hurting, but we can all do it together.
Thank you so much.
Yes.
So much. And guys, thank you so much for tuning back to Girl Talk with Kaelin. Please tune in next Wednesday at noon. Take care. That was incredible.
Yay!